Adam here from Car Care Kiosk. In this video, we're going to show you how to change the brake pads and rotors on a 2002 to 2006 Toyota Camry. The first thing we're going to want to do here is get the car off the ground. So we're going to want to jack the car up and get jack stands underneath the tires we'll be changing the brake pads and rotors on. Now that we have the car off the ground, we're going to simply remove the hubcap, take off the lug nuts, and remove the tire. Now that we have the tire off, we can remove the caliper. The caliper is the section that squeezes the brake pads against the rotor. Now let's find the bolts that secure the caliper. They're going to be on the other side of the rotor here. You can turn your wheel to give yourself better access if needed. Now we can go ahead and take out these bolts. There is a slide mechanism that kind of goes into the caliper that the bolt actually goes into. Occasionally, this little slide will spin with the bolt, and this will mean that you will not be able to pull the bolt out. To fix that, you'll just want to get a vice grip. You can kind of see a little section of the slide. Clamp the vice grip onto the slide and hold it while removing the bolts. This will allow you to get them out. Once you get the bolts out, we can now simply remove the caliper off of the rotor. Make sure you do not allow the caliper to hang from the brake line. You will want to set this somewhere so it does not hang from the brake line. Now, you can just simply remove the old brake pads. With the brake pads now out, we can remove the bracket that holds the brake pads in position. We just want to come to the back here, and there's going to be two bolts that secure it. So simply remove the two bolts and then pull the bracket off of the rotor. Now at this point, we should be able to just simply pull the old rotor off of the vehicle. Let's look at the bracket we removed here. There will be these clips on the bracket that the brake pads sit into. We want to remove the ones that are on there so we can put the new ones on provided with our new brake pads. With the clips now off, we want to clean the section that those clips kind of sit into. You can use a wire brush or any tool you have that can kind of clean any rust or debris off of here. We want to do this before we install the new ones. Make sure to spray it with some brake cleaner as well. The section here where the caliper attaches to the bracket, you're going to notice these little slides, and we want to pull these out here. Now, you will notice that there is a bunch of grease on there. What we would recommend is wiping off the old grease, and we're just going to put some new grease on here. Be sure not to apply grease to any threads that are on this pin. Make sure that you do this on both of the slides. This is a step that many people, when changing their brake pads, often forget. This will help extend the life of your brake system. This section here is actually the section that was spinning, not allowing us to get the caliper out earlier. So doing this will definitely help make it so that these slides operate the way that they should on the vehicle. At this point, we can go ahead and put the new clips that the brake pads are going to sit into. These should be provided with your new brake pads. Just align them with the bracket here, and then we do want to put a little grease on these. This will allow the brake pads to slide in here more freely and reduce friction for less wear on the pads. Before we put the new rotor on here, we are going to want to clean off the section that the rotor goes onto. We do not want the rotor to rust onto this section. Cleaning this off will help prevent that so that when we need to remove the tire or the rotor again, this will not be an issue. It's also going to be a good idea to clean the posts where the lug nuts go on. This will help them from not rusting onto the vehicle as well. Just use a wire brush or whatever tools you have to remove any dirt and rust. After we're done, we want to spray it with some brake cleaner. Let's bring the new rotor in here. We're going to get this onto the vehicle. Now, one of the things that we would suggest is putting one of the lug nuts on, if not two of them. We basically just want to position this so that it's snug up against the vehicle, so when we go to put the bracket and the caliper back on, this will be situated properly. Before we put the new brake pads on here, I want to point out these little wear indicators on the brake pads. We want to position these indicators so that when the car is backing up, the indicators are actually pulling away from the brake pad. Now, these will make a little bit of a noise so that it will tell us it's time to change the brake pads once they wear down. On this vehicle, we actually want to position these on the top of the brake pad. Before we do anything else here, we want to come and compress the caliper piston here. This is going to allow us to get this onto the vehicle quite a bit easier. Now that we have the caliper all compressed, we can bring the bracket back on to the rotor here. We're just going to align the bracket. You can kind of look in the back and just kind of see where the bolts need to go in, and we're just going to line this up here. Now, it is a good idea to hand tighten the bolts before you secure them to the vehicle here. So just put them in a little bit by hand and then bring your wrench in and tighten these completely. With the bracket back on, now we can put our new brake pads in. They should just slide in almost like a puzzle piece onto the bracket. On this particular vehicle, remember that the brake pad wear indicators need to be situated on top of the brake pads. If you look here, you can see when the tire will be spinning backwards and you're going in reverse, those will be pulling away from the brake pads. We got the new brake pads in here. Let's bring the caliper back in. We're going to just align the caliper here, kind of line it up with where the bolts go in on the back here. It can be a little finicky, so just be patient with it. We're going to go ahead, again, just like the bracket, we're going to go ahead and hand tighten these bolts. And then we're going to come in here and tighten them up the rest of the way with our wrench. At this point, I would suggest just double checking and making sure that the bracket and the caliper are secure on the vehicle. Now we're looking real good. We can just bring our tire back in and put that back on. We want to just get the tire on here and tighten up the lug nuts in a star pattern. Just get them tight enough so that the tire is secure to the vehicle at this point. Once we have them tightened, we're going to lower the vehicle down to the ground. Now that we have it on the ground, we're going to bring in our torque wrench, and then we can get these lug nuts to the proper torque that they need to be when the car is on the ground. One last thing we want to do here is come to the engine bay, remove the cap off of the brake fluid. We're going to come to the inside of the car and push down on the brake pedal several times. You'll notice it going down less and less every single time. Remember to replace the cap on your brake fluid reservoir. At this point, there's nothing left to do but enjoy your new brakes. For all of your car maintenance needs, visit carcarekiosk.com.